Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And we're excited that you've joined us for a brand new week here on the show. It's Mark, we're talking team basics.
And there are a lot of basics, but the good news, they're simple.
They're simple. They've been very simple, but the last few days, last week, and today, even again, we're talking about one of the basics, having great meetings. It's just, our meetings should be great. And I think one of the things that can make our meetings greater is this idea of making great decisions in those meetings. Your decisions really do determine the destination of your business, your company, your school, whatever you got going on. They're huge. So today, let's dive in a little bit. We're gonna land this, and then we'll move on to we said 75% on performance management. What goes into 25%? Tomorrow we'll kind of get into that a little bit. Some of the things that are possible. But today, decision making. I don't want us to move on before we talk about making great decisions.
Yeah,
it's an important part for any team.
Yeah, and there may be those listening who wonder why you would put decision making in a series when we're talking about meetings.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue that one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen teams make for decades is because they're a team, they assume that all of their decisions need to be consensus decisions, which is impossible. It's unwieldy, it's time-consuming, it's not the right answer, and a lot of folks get bogged down in their pursuit of consensus decision-making because we know it is the most time-consuming form of decision-making that there is.
Yeah.
And so years ago, I began to talk to teams about some of the alternatives they have at their disposal when it's time to make a decision. And I think we're going to review that at a really high level here today.
Okay, so let's dive into that. One of the things I can do if I'm in charge of a team is I can make a command decision. I get to decide. Like this is what we say. You're the leader. You can do it that way.
Yeah,
that's not the only way to do it. There's some other ways to make decisions.
Sure, and let me even give a little context to that. I think this will help. That we talk about 4 types of decisions, and that's a level 1 decision.
And sometimes that decision
that's
is
appropriate.
Good. If the building's on fire and I'm in charge, I need to probably. There's a level of urgency.
Yeah.
There's times where crisis is going on. Other times when the leader needs to make the decision. They've got more context than other people have sometimes.
Sure.
But that is
an option.
That is an option.
But the reason
sometimes a newer team, I need to make
a
decision. They don't have the experience to make those kind of things. Command is an option.
And the reason I mentioned the 4 is I want this to provide a shortcut for you guys. So if our team has embraced this approach and you walk in as the leader and say, I've got a level 1 decision. Well, my responsibility then is very simple. I'm supposed to take good notes and ask good questions to clarify. We're not debating at this point. I'm under your authority.
Living under authority, that's right.
So that's why level 1. But you might walk in and say, hey, we need to make a level 2 decision, which is a consultative decision. And what that means is the leader retains the right to make the decision, but he or she wants input from those around the table. Yeah. And if you'll tell us that up front, that clears up a lot.
Everybody's going to get better input.
We don't assume that we're going to make the decision, and we're not offended when we don't get to make the decision because you told us in the beginning.
Yeah.
We're going to make a consultative decision here.
Yeah.
Now, let me quickly add, I had a scenario where a leader walked in and said, we're going to make a level 2 decision here. The conversation began, and somebody on the team called out the leader. And they said, you're just wasting our time. You've already decided. You're playing a game. You're trying to make us think we've got input here. And so, that's great team behavior, that a team member would have the comfort to challenge a leader like that. I thought the leader's response was brilliant. He said, no. He said, what you're hearing is my bias. That's why I need your consultation.
Yeah, that's so good, isn't it?
Because, left to my own, it's pretty obvious what I do, but I'm not sure I'm right. So help me think through this. That's what a consultative decision is.
Yeah.
So that's your second option.
Yeah, and I think weigh in around that table, when you're making that consultative, we always say weigh-in leads to buy-in. I mean, it's like, I know if you've heard me, and we still may have to do what you want. I mean, you're still in charge. You're the leader. We're going to follow that. We are under authority. But if we all have weighed in and we feel like we've really been heard and that decision's being made accordingly, it's just so powerful for a team.
Yeah. And so the third option is a consensus decision. Again, this is the one that teams tend to drift toward. And I would argue it should not be the majority of decisions that a team makes, because most folks have a misunderstanding of what consensus means. And it's not unanimous support, but it is reaching a conclusion that every member can fully support.
Yeah.
So every member might not do it the way the team ultimately decides, but every team member can support the final decision. And it's actually time consuming, because let's say we're trying to make a decision. There's 6 of us around a table. And so if I'm facilitating, I'd say, Randy, can you support this? And you say yes. And I come around the table and the second person says yes. The third person says, no, I can't. So then you say, well, what would we have to change for you to support the decision? And they offer their adjustments. Then we come back and say, now, can you support what has just been proposed? Yes, I can. No, I can't. What would we have to change for you to fully support that? That can take months sometimes.
Yeah.
So it would be very complex, very consequential issues that are not time sensitive.
Yeah, that's good.
That's when you can try to reach a conclusion, a decision that everybody can fully support.
Yeah, and not everybody, I'll simplify just here a little bit, not everybody needs to agree on everything. They really don't. But when they walk out of that room, if we've made a consensus decision, we need to be aligned on everything. And we don't need to say, well, I would have done it this way, or how many teams just doom themselves because they have that kind of behavior going on outside of the meeting.
Right.
Because maybe the leader has not said, this is a level 3 decision. We're going to all be, aligned on this when we walk out. We may not all agree. I think that coaching up front from that leader of this is the kind of decision we're making is so important. And then there have to be consequences if we have that kind of behavior going on.
Yeah, and let me come back just a second. The type of decision can change. So a real life example. I was on a team. A leader had asked us to make a consensus decision, and it was important. It was consequential. It was complex, and it was not time sensitive. It was really a big deal, and we had been discussing it and debating it for 6 months, and we didn't have consensus. So the leader says, "Okay, you got 30 days. I still want a consensus decision if we can get one. If we can't, we're going to change this to consultative. And I'll make the call based on all of this conversation and all of this input."
Yeah, that's
well,
good.
You know what happened?
Yeah,
we reached
the
a
urgency
consensus
got you
because
a
nobody wanted to have to give it back to the boss.
Yeah.
And you might argue he could have or should have done that earlier, but again, it wasn't time sensitive.
But at the end of the day, such healthy behavior on a team to have these kind of conversations, so good. And most of us, if we've never been taught this, this sounds very simple. It is simple, but it's hard. Simple sometimes is hard. It's hard
like
to make a decision. Yeah, exactly. It's easy for us to think that this is all just going to be some fairy tale. It's not. It's going to get messy at times. It is work. Okay, there's a fourth way to make a decision.
The fourth,
talk about the fourth one.
Is delegating. Delegating the decision.
Yeah.
When there's a decision to be made, the leader can say, Randy, make that decision, and you can say report back or not.
Yeah.
And so we need to delegate more decisions. Now, when it comes to you, you've got some options. You can make a command decision. You can make it consultative and get input from others. You can put a team together and get consensus. But now you own it, and it's not around this table.
Yeah.
Teams are talking about a lot of stuff that should be delegated.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. All right, so is it possible that your meetings could be better if you had a decision-making understanding? These 4 levels might be helpful too. There's other ways you can maybe think about this, but we would encourage you to start with these 4 and ask yourself, do we have a decision-making process? And if you don't, this might be an opportunity for you to really level up your meetings. If you missed any of those episodes last week where we talked about having great meetings, all kind of good stuff, you can go back and check those out. I hope you will. Hope you'll continue to share. Hope you'll come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about what happens in the 25% of meetings, part of the things that happen in the 25% of meetings that is not performance management. You're not going to want to miss that, because what we talk about there maybe is the key to take your team to a level.
Oh, it is the key.
We
the
believe
key.
it is the key. Take your team to a level it'll never experience without what we're going to talk about. Join us tomorrow for that. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.